All right. Boom, guys. We're back. Listen, I got this question on one of my videos the other day. Hey, your videos are very inspiring. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Could you please make a video on how to deal with fear and stress in the face of adversities? Now, I absolutely can. That's why I'm sitting here. But where I can relate to this is, of course, military experience and just life in general. When it comes to like adversity and stuff, I talked about this in the other video, like non-negotiables, etc. But I have this thing, and this is what I used to essentially go through like the special forces selection that I went through before my training, and it's all about setting the small checkpoints. Hey, can we hit this before that, right? Before this time, and so when you're facing fear and stress in the face of adversity, that's where these small checkpoints come into play, because I swear to God, this stuff will happen regardless. You can't eliminate it, so you need to set up processes for how to deal with it. And you need to do that like as you go through it, because that's why it takes a lot of people a few tries to go through something like, let's say, a special forces selection. For example, a lot of people that's gotten through some of this stuff, they've done multiple tries, because you need the experience beforehand. Now, extrapolate this into anything, right? I'm just using this as an example. But you need the experience beforehand to systemize the next time. For example, let's say heartbreak, for example. You subconsciously systemize, let's say, oh, girlfriend's mad at you, first time, you mess it up, whatever, it's over, on to the next one, who cares, right? But the next time you're talking with a chick, right, for example, then you subconsciously have these systems, or consciously, like for like a special forces selection that is way more intense. I don't know what kind of relationship you are in, but I guess they're not as, I hope, for God's sake, that they're not as intense as a special forces selection. But hey, you know better than me. So you at least have some systems for, hey, this is what I do when this happens, because the fear and stress, it could show up regardless. Sometimes it's not even up to you. It's maybe someone gets hit by a car, right? You can't do anything about it. And it's not like you have to get hit by a car multiple times to create that system, but you learn to recognize, what does this do to my mind? How does this make me feel? And so over time, you create these processes, right, in your head, because it's very individual. Everyone has these things like, okay, how they deal with it, but the only way you can deal with it is actually to go through it. And I'll tell you this, that by avoiding it, you're actually doing yourself a very, big disservice, because that's why it's so important to, to put yourself out there, to put yourself in the face of, stress and fear by, for example, going into the military. Because that's, when they're, shouting at you, all this bullshit, right? Then that's a place where you actually face that and you grow from that. And so if you live always trying to get away from it, not face it, then you're not going to grow. You're not going to be able to do anything about it, because you need these systems. You need these systems in here, subconsciously and consciously, to actually manage it. That's why, shying away from relationships, not shying away from physical challenges, not being a pussy, that's why that's so important. Because maybe it's difficult for you to jump from 3 meters to the pool the first time, right? You can do it from 2. Boom, that's difficult, but we did it. Hey, next time 3. And you recognize exactly how difficult was it actually to jump from that 2-meter height. We're talking about really, really low level, because you need to set yourself the smallest goals possible. And so you can go back into what actually made me do it, what actually kept me going. And, for this, we're talking about your single incidents, just like that, jumping from 2 meters, jumping to 3 meters. When it comes to facing it over time, again, the checkpoints, what I will say is that since this stuff happens over time, then emotions get involved. Everyone's emotional, right? All this stuff like, oh, hey, just ignore emotions. Like, we can do that. That's probably really good. But there will come up some emotion, like thoughts that, plague you. And like, let's say I'm going to use the special forces selection again. Actually, maybe let's do a boxing match. Let's do a boxing match, right? For example, my Muay Thai fight. That's a good one, for example, because I actually started to feel tired. Imagine me, the prime specimen that I am, 6'3", 220 pounds. I can do whatever. I can punch through brick walls. I even, felt like, shit, I'm getting tired here. Imagine. I felt that. I had that thought going, right? And so the thing that I had to keep focus on was like basics. All right, we hydrate, we sit down, we listen to the coaches, right? We're ignoring all this stuff. And this stuff doesn't even have to come from inside my mind. It can come from someone else's mind. Someone else, like a hater, for example, like telling me, hey, stop making these awesome videos that you're making, right? Maybe it's saying that. He's probably not saying that, though. He's probably telling me, hey, Nico, you make total garbage. And maybe I go like, yeah, fuck you, whatever. But even then, like, that's coming from someone else. I still focus on the basics. Hey, I sit down, I listen to my coaches, whatever, right? Or for like the video example, I just keep uploading because I don't give a shit, right? So, but this is a really good case for why it's so important to be physically strong. Because if you have the physical capacity, because let's say this is fear, stress in the face of adversity, let's say it's physical, right? Because I've talked a lot about the mental stuff, right? Let's say it's really, really physical. Then having the buffer physically to go through with it and not fatiguing really, really quickly, that's going to give you the buffer in here. So they're all connected, this mind and the body, right? It's all connected. I swear, there's so many people saying like, oh, mindset, is one thing, and like training is one thing. It's not, okay? It's the totally same thing. They build upon each other, levers, choo-choo, just like that. So having the buffer physically to go through with something, then that's going to give you some extra room to think when it comes to the mind. And it goes back and forth, right? You train, you get more mentally strong, boom. And then it helps the body go longer. So they lift each other up, right? I remember this thing. This is really cool. And this is actually cool. A quote that actually stuck with me for a while. I have two, actually. So the first one was during my first Special Forces selection that I failed. There was this instructor. He told me, because it's more like laid back and you're more left to yourself, being like, hey, you're your own man now. You're going to navigate here. They don't give you that much feedback, as opposed to the Navy SEAL type selection that I went through the next year. This guy in the first selection, he said, everything you do here, all of us has done. All the instructors have passed this, and we're still alive. And just knowing that, hey, these guys are alive. I have basically, because they don't tell you this, right? They're not trying to comfort you, but I could deduce or deduct. I don't know which one is the right word. But hey, I could extrapolate, essentially. These guys are here, and none of them have died. None of them have died, right? And so I knew that even through the painful stuff, even through like, because there was all this water stuff, I think I passed out or something, I always knew I would not die, right? Even though the fear of death is really good motivator, I always knew at least, hey, I'm not going to die from this. And so that gave me something to keep going. So even in the fear, even through the stress, I was like, this is not going to kill me. And that gave me some power. That gave me some comfort. Now, the next example I'll give you is that, because this was during my training, we trained for hostage rescue back during my Norwegian Navy SEAL training, right? Then when we trained for that, I was so nervous in the shoot house, super nervous breakdown, almost crazy. That's very natural though. It's the toughest thing ever, like the CQB selections. But I remember this guy, he told me, because this guy was the PT for our squad, right? We had our own PT. He made sure, because we were always on the back foot when it came to performance, because we were kind of fatigued and we wanted to build up. It was a big period of high intensity work before we started the CQB selection. We wanted to recuperate some of that and build up our mind again, because as I said, like the body and mind connected, so we didn't want to be fatigued here, so we want to be strong in our body, be able to do all this stuff inside the shoot house. But he essentially told me, because he saw my drive in the gym whenever we were there, like as a group, he told me, hey, draw from the confidence that you find when you're doing this action and use it into this action, right? Familiarize yourself with the feeling, the emotions, what's going through your mind when you're there, and use that in this scenario. Draw on it, use it, right? And that stuck with me. And it gave me so much strength, because I was able to recognize, hey, what is it exactly that gives me the confidence to perform here in the gym? And I was able to use the exact same framework to recognize, hey, where am I good at this? And I focused on the strong points. I used that for drive, for motivation to really push through. Hey, I'm good at this. I focus on that. This is I'm good at this. Bam, bam, bam. I'm good at the communication part. Maybe I'm not good at entering through the door, but I'm good at communication. I'm good at taking in the information, what's going on, getting that overview, what we're doing in a shoot house, and I can use that. I can focus on that, right? For example, now for someone else, it might be, hey, I'm good at the door. I'm not that good at keeping overview of what's going on. I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to listen, and I'm going to prep to go on the next door. Maybe that's the way of going about it, right? If that's you, maybe you're the one who's stuck at the door. Boom, the flashbang goes in, boom, you're in. Focus on the next door. It always comes down to the small steps, always comes down to the simplest actions. I will tell you this though, when it comes to like dealing with fear and stress, I want you to know that I want you to think about the end goal, right? And I want you to get rid of that. Because this is all about the process. This goal that you have in mind for what you want to accomplish, it will be worth nothing unless you go through with this fear and stress. It will be worth nothing. Because it's all about the process. It's all about who you become along the path there. And that is done through facing that fear and stress. You can't avoid it. You cannot. If you avoid it, then that end goal will not be fulfilling. It will not be what you think it is. It might look nice and shiny right now, but if you don't go through these small steps, the every single day actions that require some fear and stress because of the unknown, then that won't be what you think it is, right? But I think that's it, honestly. And I want you to go back and watch my video on non-negotiables and setting yourself the simplest goals, because that's really what's going to carry you there, because you can't avoid this stuff again. But I don't want to repeat myself here. Hope you guys enjoyed. Take care, and God bless. Boom!